minutes, Michelle. Michelle?
No, no minutes, no.
I'm preparing to live stream.
Okay, hang on, Laurel's gonna live stream, start the live stream, then we can start the meeting.
I'll turn it, do you want me to turn it on yet? Are you recording?
Yeah.
Sure, you can. Okay, we're gonna start recording. And we're broadcasting on YouTube as of now,
Yes.
Laurel?
Yes.
All right. All right, so I'd like to begin the meeting. We'll call it to order. So we have the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we have roll call.
Commissioner Ansel,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton,
Present?
Chairman Bonnet,
Here.
Commissioner Wessel,
Here.
Commissioner Little,
Here.
Commissioner Rettenbach,
Here.
Commissioner Lautner,
Present.
all present.
Thank you. That brings us to administrator's update. Yes, I'd like to have Matt give an update here on what he has been involved in the last probably 6 weeks now. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you. By the way, all the people presenting today will be using the office next to mine where the VA rep is. So all the people that are presenting will be in that office. So Matt, I'll let you start here.
Okay, well, when the coronavirus was first starting to ramp up, before it really took hold in Michigan, we made some changes to alter our medical dispatch protocol. And at the time, we're mainly prioritizing EMS personnel with their, I guess, exposure to patients that could be infected. And as you know, our first case in Leelanau County was confirmed on Monday, March 16th of this past month. That led to a lot of different changes for our procedure and dispatch. We made the decision to expand that coronavirus protocol for all face-to-face contact within the county. So not just EMS, we did it for law enforcement and fire personnel as well. To date, we still have 4 cases in Leelanau County. And that has, we haven't been quite as hard hit as other places, but we still do have a need for requesting resources for personal protection equipment for our responders and long-term care facilities. Since the governor made the declaration and the president made his declaration of disaster, we do have to make those requests per agency. So I do go through Lansing through an online portal and make these requests. I do it for the EMS agencies and for our long-term care facilities. The Region 7 Healthcare Coalition has been trying to take a leadership role in asking for these resources and distributing these resources. There's a lot of confusion between the state and the region on the best way to distribute these. I kind of took it upon myself to make these requests so that they can come here and then I can distribute them, because it's a lot easier for us to do that locally as opposed to trying to go from Lansing to Gaylord to Leelanau County. We're still working our way through that, but we are getting some resources as they trickle in. We've had a lot of donations from the public. They reach out to the sheriff themselves. They call me, most notably Cherry Country Quilters in Sutton's Bay. They had a team of sewers that sewed up some homemade masks for first responders. The beauty of these is that they have built-in capacity for filters that they can wear over the N95 masks to prolong the life, because those are scarce right now. So the longer we can use them in the county, the better. And these sewers did an excellent job. They sterilized them before they gave them to us. They individually packaged them in Ziploc bags, and we're able to give 2 per responder in the county. That way they can wear one for one shift and wash the other while it's on deck, if you will. So that was extremely gracious of them. We've had to track these resources, not just the resources we request from the state, but also donations, so that we can track all the resources that we've utilized in this process. Part of that has turned my responsibility as the emergency manager into a logistics chief, to track the inventory and the distribution of these resources. Lansing likes to know where their property has been gone, and record keeping is very important for that. A lot of counties around the state have decided to declare a local declaration of emergency. In Leelanau County, I don't believe that we have met that need, and I don't believe we will need to, because the governor has declared and the president has declared. So all these resources that we get from the state are covered by the state. Any expenses that we do incur for PPEs in response to the coronavirus, we are tracking with the sheriff's office and the fire departments, and we'll be able to submit for reimbursement for that once all this is over. But mostly the state has been covering the PPE delivery for Leelanau County. One recent development we've had that started yesterday is that the fire chiefs got together and decided to dedicate 2 ambulances to respond specifically to COVID patients. So the questioning that we have in dispatch, if it does come up positive for COVID symptoms, we do send these 2 ambulances to the call, along with the jurisdictional agency. But these COVID ambulances are designed to cut down on the exposure that all of our responders have to COVID patients. And through one day, it's worked pretty well. Dispatchers took to it, and the responders are working as a team. And this was a team effort for all the fire EMS agencies in the county. They're working together. They're sharing the financial responsibility to staff these ambulances. And it's a very good representation of the cohesiveness we have in Leelanau County. Moving forward, we're going to continue to monitor the needs that we have for our EMS personnel and the long-term care facilities. As we get PPEs that trickle in from the state, we will continue to distribute them as appropriate. N95 masks are something that we need. EMS agencies are doing well right now, but the longer this goes on, the less likely we're going to be able to get away with not having more. So as they trickle in, they will be a needed commodity. And we will just continue to trudge on and address the needs as they arrive. And are there any questions that the commissioners have regarding the COVID?
Commissioner Rushton.
Thank you so much for your update this morning. Couple of questions on the ambulances. Which 2 fire departments have dedicated the ambulances?
Stolen one, right?
Well, yeah, Cedar has given up their backup ambulance, and Leland has given up theirs. Now they're being housed at the Leland Fire Station and the Glen Lake Station 1. And they're staffed by every agency within the county. So the personnel have been throughout the county. The ambulances themselves are from Cedar and Leland.
And they're based out of Leland, the ambulances?
Leland is one station, and then Glen Lake is the other.
And what's the response time for these ambulances?
It depends on where the call is located.
Well, if we have a call down here in Elmwood, what's that response time look like?
We would be sending the ambulance from Glen Lake. So I'm talking 20 minutes.
And that's specifically for COVID, a call-in for a COVID. What if you have a heart attack with a COVID patient? How's that handled?
The agency that is the jurisdiction, if we're talking about Elmwood's crew would make the determination and then put on appropriate PPE and enter the scene themselves.
Do we have a dedicated team that's manning these ambulances, or is this going to be just random EMS personnel that is taking the COVID ambulance out?
They are the specific personnel from each agency. So it's only I think there's 12 or 14 personnel that are manning these ambulances throughout.
What is the licensing level for those that are manning that?
They're carrying it at a basic life support.
Okay. Do we anticipate that we're going to have enough PPEs, masks, or do we see that as a problem going forward?
We're sitting pretty well as fire and EMS agencies right now. The longer this goes on without any assistance from the state is when we will run into a problem. We should be receiving a shipment of KN95 masks this afternoon, so that's going to help dramatically.
What about gloves?
Gloves we're okay with. We do have a large shipment of gloves that was distributed out to fire and EMS and the long-term care facilities. So gloves are good. KN95s and N95 masks, face shields, those are things that we want to be able to have in a stockpile.
And Matt, can you tell us, is there any way that the community can assist with EMS or the Sheriff's Department in this regard?
Taking the proper precautions when they do come in contact with them, social distancing, especially with law enforcement. If it doesn't need to be reported, we don't need to expose our responders to the situation. Obviously, if it is an emergent situation, just taking any kind of mask over your face, even if it's a scarf, trying to cut down on the droplets that can be exposed to our personnel, coughs, sneezes, and whatnot.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, how are we coordinating with Northlight on the COVID ambulances?
It's business as usual with Northlight. If it is a COVID ambulance that's going to transport, Northlight does have personnel that they have for COVID response if they're available. If not, then they would just be sending an ALS capable paramedic on the COVID ambulance in proper PPE.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Matt? Seeing none, thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
All right, anything else, Chip, on update? Mine update's coming up under the agenda. All right, so then we have approval of the agenda. I guess we'll delete number 2. Yes.
Correct.
If that's okay, and then we'd,
Yes.
Otherwise, there's other changes to the agenda. Commissioner Wessel?
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
I have one question.
Okay. Commissioner Rettenbach had her hand up.
I was trying to second.
Oh, okay. Commissioner Watt.
One question. Chet, I believe Chet gave us an update on the possible federal funds for critical employees, law enforcement.
Yeah, I will fairly lengthy update I'll do on the next agenda item.
My question is, we don't have to do anything today about that on our agenda?
Correct.
No action? Thank you.
You're correct. Okay, well, all those in favor of the agenda as amended?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So then that brings us to public comment.
Do we have any public? Do we
Laura,
know?
I don't think we do.
Let me just,
We'll double check.
I don't show anybody.
Okay, we don't have anybody available requesting it, so we'll move on to the action item. And the first item is from the administrator with the COVID update.
Yeah, thank you. And let me go through this, and then if you could save your questions to the end, I think it'd be helpful. First of all, I want to start by just thanking everyone for their efforts in 911, in the Sheriff's Department, in this building. It's been a traumatic 4 weeks. Little did we know that when we met here on March 17th, that would be the last time we'd be in person, and all the events that took place. It's been hard to predict what has happened since that meeting. In some respects, we were ahead of the ballgame with most counties. Board passed this resolution on March 17th that basically prepared us for the governor's order, in some respects the federal order, on how to proceed. As you know, you passed a resolution policy first, and then you passed a resolution that extended through yesterday, April 13th, that really prepared us well for the last 4 weeks. And the clerk and I have many requests from other counties asking for a copy of our policies. I've been on numerous listservs, webinars almost every week. The clerk has also, and it caught quite a few counties off guard, because what we did on March 17th really helped us in terms of preparing for the governor's order and the federal mandate. So I appreciate that. Chairman Vanek and I have been in contact almost on a daily basis. The clerk and I, the sheriff and I, Matt and I have talked almost on a daily basis. We're all trying to do the best we can under these unique circumstances. Everyone has questions that unfortunately we just don't have the answers to everything. It almost changes week by week, day by day. So let me just go over some of the things that we have done and how we're proposing that we go forward, and that's could change on what happens. So we did classify by our policy people as critical, essential, and non-essential. Most of the people that were non-essential at the beginning were people that were health related. We've had some people that had potential exposure. We have people that have preconditioned medical situations, and we allow those people to stay from home. Once the governor issued her order, we looked at this more carefully, because part of the governor's order was the fact that we had to give permission to people to work at home if it was legitimately adequate, and if we had the technology. Unfortunately, Ron has been very helpful here with that, and so we have numerous people working at home, and I'll go into more detail on that. At this point, I do not see a need to extend this policy. This authority that was granted, it expired April 13th. I think we're in full compliance with the federal state guidelines. I think we accomplished our goal, and now with Zoom technology, I'm glad we did this. It did expire yesterday, and I really don't see a need at this point to extend it at this point. So we will proceed as much as we can, business as usual, going forward. As I said, I've been in numerous webinars, telephone calls, because every county is basically experiencing the same thing. And it's very frustrating, and there's safety in knowing that what you're doing is what other counties are doing. And the challenges we are facing here are the same as many counties. In some respects, we're much better off just because of the fact that, fortunately, so far we have not been hit. I think Matt mentioned we have 4 confirmed cases in Leelanau County. I read an article that hoped that by the time we're done, all of us will probably know someone that's infected. Unfortunately, that's true in my case. I know 2 people that have it. One is in Munson right now, struggling. He has pneumonia as well as the virus. And the next several days are going to be critical for him. I know one other person that is at home recovering from it. So it really has impacted everyone. And so as Matt said, the best thing we can do is just stay safe, be careful, and take this seriously. From a clean perspective, we have met numerous times with our clean company. They are here on the weekends. They're here in the evenings. All the chemicals they're using are certified to prevent the spread of the virus. So we're pleased with that. some good things have happened from the community. People are very generous in Leelanau County. One of the busiest offices has been senior services. And they have just done a fantastic job. They all are working full-time. April is, as of we are meeting right now, here and the staff are out there picking up meals because the community has been very generous. People have stepped forward, especially in the Sons Bowl Lake Leelanau area, and they have actually paid for meals. They gave us the funds to pay for 120 meals for our seniors. And so we have been out there delivering meals. Today, they hope to deliver meals. On top of the 120, they're helping with the Meals on Wheels program. So just today alone, 175 seniors will get meals here, either through Meals on Wheels, but most of that is some local residents who want to support seniors, but all want to support the local restaurants. So we're working with all the local restaurants to make this possible. And so we're grateful for that. And like I said, April and her staff has done an excellent job. They are on the phone constantly calling seniors. We're getting calls from sons and daughters of people living here asking if we could check up on them. And once again, I'm very grateful for all their assistance. In terms of the departments here, the ones that have been quite busy are the Register of Deeds. You're still getting large volumes in terms of closing documents. The other offices have been quite busy is the clerk's office. People are still filing paperwork, making payments. People are still applying for marriage licenses. And so they are pretty much working at full capacity. The equalization department, for the deadline of the report that's due, that Lori will talk about this afternoon or this morning, she has been at full staff. The departments that probably hit the greatest in this is our inspections department, building safety. It has really decreased the last couple of weeks in terms of their call coming in. We have to stay open because there's still projects that are legitimate and still going forward, have to be inspected. Our prosecutor, their staff has been greatly reduced as the number of issues they're dealing with has decreased, obviously with people not on the road and people staying home. Michigan State, most of those are Michigan State employees, and they are at a virtually at a standstill. We have two employees, one full-time, one half-time. The full-time one is monitoring the office, the other one is working remotely, but that has been a challenge. And the planning department has been reduced too because of the lack of zoning issues, lack of people building, requesting addresses. So that has come to virtually a standstill. In terms of how counties are moving forward, I was part of a conference call last week with all the county administrators. As you know, there are 83 counties. We had 56 participating, and everyone's kind of waiting to see what happens next. The governor's order expires April 30th. How do we go forward? Counties are struggling. At this point, no one has made a decision in terms of layoffs until the 1st of May. We're kind of the same mode here. We're waiting to see on what happens. Will the shutdown continue? Will it be reduced, and at what level, and how we go forward? I've asked Jen Zawicki to be available. Is Jen in the office still?
Yes.
Okay. I know quite a few are asking questions about financially, how we're doing. One of the things I'd like to propose is, assuming things continue the way they are, I'd like to suggest that we have a special board meeting on Tuesday, May 5th at 9 o'clock. It's a week before our executive committee, but just to focus on this, focus on our budget, focus how we're going to go forward with personnel issues and how we're going to proceed. There's so many unknowns now. If we wait till the regular meeting, it's not till the 19th of May. And if we're going to make adjustments to personnel and budget, I think we need to be prepared. There's some steps we have to take. So right now, if all of you could save Tuesday, May 5th on your agenda in the morning, if the governor does extend the order, I think there'll be a need for us to meet. Obviously, it's very stressful on our employees here. We're trying to keep people as calm as possible. There's a lot of false rumors out there, which I'll talk about later. But now, Jen, if you could just give an update. Jen and I, John Gallagher and Michelle met and we're all on the same page in terms of our budget situation.
Yeah, Melinda has a question there.
Oh, okay. Melinda?
The technical question, can Ron mute our microphone in between
Yes.
votes? Oh, I'm picking up a lot of static.
Mhm.
Okay, I think Laura can mute them. If you want to raise your hand, then she'll unmute you, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So-
Thank you, Melinda. That's a good suggestion.
Patricia?
What was the time on May 5th?
9 o'clock.
You.
That's a tentative right now, but I think we should be prepared to have a special meeting.
We'll have to sign, three will have to sign for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. But this point, Jen, you want to give us an update?
Yeah.
Certainly,
There are a lot
Jen.
of questions about our finances, our revenues versus expenses. And there's no one better at these numbers than Jen Zawicki.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I ran a couple reports. I just wanted to update the commissioners on how we're looking from year end to year end. Our audit is over essentially. It was a virtual audit, meaning the first time ever that no one's been here on staff to take care of it. We've done everything via email and sharing files with the auditors, giving them the knowledge that we have so that they can produce our audit timely for us. As you know, in 2019, we had our large project, which was the HVAC system. And we had appropriated about a $750,000 fund balance to take care of that project here. So the final numbers are not in the audit, but a not final number, it looks as though from the 750 that we thought we were going to use towards that, the fund balance number we were going to use was 1.2 million. We actually came in under. There are a few adjustments that John has in the audit, but we are basically using our fund balance was only 611,000. So that's a great number for us to pull forward coming into the times that we are right now. I have run numbers in March, and remember our large amount of revenue that we get in is our summer tax roll. So this is normally a downtime for us. This is where John has his investments in the banks earning us interest. And then we pull when necessary to get us into our July where our mortgage companies and our taxpayers are paying our taxes and we're collecting. So from March to March, from 19 to 20, we actually show in revenue an increase of 26,000. So we are right on trend for March. We do know that April is going to not give us the numbers that we would collect at the counter or in the court system. But like in the clerk's office and register of deeds, we won't know, of course, until that meeting in May where we're sitting as in the foot traffic and the economy around us.
Were you through then, Jen?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions for her? Commissioner Rushton?
I just want to put this on everyone's radar. It's my understanding that the airport anticipates a $1.5 million deficit. And I would not be surprised if we do not see the airport looking to the counties for operational funding going forward. And of course, we all know that the feds have allocated a certain amount of money to the airports, but I think that we should include this in our discussion May 5th, because it may come to fruition, and we are going to have to be prepared in how we're going to deal with that issue.
Anyone else? Commissioner Ansari?
Obviously, asking the county for money is one option, airport, but there are other options as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, we aren't necessarily going to key in on one option. There are other options out there too.
I can verify, I've been talking to Mr. Klein on a weekly basis. Coming back to counties asking for funds would be his last resort. He's going to explore every other option first.
All right.
Can I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jen, and Jen will stay on if you have questions, but I really have a lot of faith in Jen and her ability to look at numbers. She's done a fantastic job. So when the governor issued her order, it basically mandated that certain things happen. In terms of our employees, we have to make every effort to have them work remotely and keep people separated. Once again, I want to thank Ron Plumondon here for his efforts and our staff. We have worked well, I think, together to accomplish that. And we are proceeding with business as much as we can. And we are trying to keep people separate here in the buildings. We're trying to be in compliance with the governor's order and still get the work done. In terms of rumors from the community, one of the biggest issues we faced, first of all, was our construction codes. And as Commissioner Bunnick knows, he and I met with the sheriff, met with Commissioner Patricia and Ty, and we talked about various options. And we had a great discussion. I thought it was a great process how it worked. I've been talking to Joe Hubble and the sheriff, and just a couple of rumors out there. Contrary to what some people are saying, our deputies are not driving around the county looking for people that are violating it. However, we have had numerous calls from contractors with concerns about their fellow contractors doing projects. When we do get those calls, the sheriff does investigate them. If there's a legitimate need, he sends a report to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor will then make a judgment whether a fine has been issued. As of last week, I don't believe any fines have been issued. There have been some warnings given. I know there was a meeting Friday at a contractor at Empire that may have been pushing the limit, and I think he did stop. So just for the clarification, we're not out there looking for people. If we get a complaint, it is investigated. If they choose not to stop or listen to the deputy, then it goes to the prosecutor's office. And Paul Hunter is back now, and he has been working with Joe Hubble. They even met Friday on a project going forward. So we're trying to do the best we can. And there are projects that are legitimate, that work can continue, and we still are doing inspections. So I just want to clarify that. Also, there's rumors that our deputies are out there stopping people, asking where they're going. That's not the case. If a car is stopped or vehicle is stopped, there's a reason they've been stopped. I'm sure they will ask them, where are you going, where are you coming from, which is typical. But our deputies are not out there stopping vehicles just because they suspect that they're traveling or going somewhere. So that's not the case at all. So I just want to clarify that. If you read the updates from our legal counsel, I thought they did a nice job with an overview of the governor's proclamation. And then part of the federal program, the CARES package, there's been some confusion about that. Part of that is the Families First Response Act. Because the governor did declare a state of emergency, we are covered by that. And part of that is basically that employees don't have daycare, or if their spouses have to work, there's a series of things that they are eligible for a leave. Part of that, we have to declare certain people as critical or non-critical. We have declared the law enforcement people and the 911 dispatcher as critical. And obviously we care about their safety and their well-being, but we also have to be careful about the safety and well-being of our county here and our residents. And I know this will never happen, but we have quite a few younger dispatchers working. And let's say, for example, 4 of them decided they wanted to stay home and take care of the kids. Well, we would have a real staffing issue here. And so at the advice of our legal counsel, and what most counties have done, we have declared our sheriff's department and 911 dispatcher as being critical. This is a common practice throughout the state. It was based on consultation I did with my fellow county administrators, based on legal advice, based on reading the federal mandate. This does not exclude them from any benefits. Matter of fact, we have been generous. The board did pass a resolution with the 10 days. Obviously, anyone who's working 911 or on the road or in the sheriff's department, if they have legitimate illness and sickness, we will do everything we can to help them out. We will honor that commitment that we have made. We've had one dispatcher who had to self-quarantine. We took care of that. That dispatcher was not charged with the sick days or vacation days. We had a couple officers that had a variety of health issues. We took care of those. So we're treating everyone as fairly as possible as we can. I know there's been a movement statewide. Yesterday, you received a letter from one of our deputies with his concerns about being classified critical, and I respect their opinion. I did find out yesterday, though, and this is no disrespect to our deputies, the same type of letter basically went out to every county in the state. If you read today's Record Eagle, Grand Traverse County received basically the same type of letter. And part of it is tied to extra compensation. Based on my discussion and my webinars, I think every county in the state has been asked to provide extra compensation for their first responders. And what is taking place now is most counties are waiting to see what happens here after May 1st. You may know there's been a movement at the state level and at the federal level to provide compensation for our first responders. If that happens, we will of course apply for those funds. There's no doubt about that. The sheriff and I have been meeting. We're exactly on the same page. If that does happen, we will of course apply for those funds. What some counties have done is offer extra comp time for first responders. We basically did that with our policy on March 17. Some first responders who legitimately had issues, we took care of them through that. So even though we have classified them as critical, we respect them, we will treat them as fair as possible. We will continue to work with every individual who has a legitimate need to be off work. But I just wanted to know that contrary to some stories out there, because I had some phone calls from people say we're not treating them fairly. I think we're trying to treat everyone as fair as possible. But it is critical that people, law enforcement and 911 dispatch have to come to work. That's just for the safety of everyone in Leelanau County. And we're working with them. We're trying to meet their needs and still provide safety for our residents here. So I'll talk a little more about that later. One of the things we did do, we're trying to be proactive. You probably saw the full page ad in the Leelanau Enterprise last week, urging people to abide by the health advisory. We printed up approximately 50 posters that were 18 by 24 inches. We drove around Leelanau County, placed them up in gas stations, stores, township offices, any place that was open. And really the people that I did the Leland, Northport, Omena were very gracious and very thankful for us doing that. So we're just trying to get the word out there. Because of the new health department mandate on employee safety, as you know, every employee has to fill out a sheet that we are doing every single day. A sheet like this I email to all of you. We are keeping a log of everyone every day that does it. And I appreciate the fact that every employee has taken this seriously. We are limiting people coming in the building. We are trying not to let anyone pass the public lobby here. If those rare cases where they do have to meet someone, we're actually meeting in this commissioner's room because that table is probably about 8-9 feet long. And so one person sits on one end and the other person sits on the other end. So we're trying to abide by that. There's been some false rumors, and I know people are stressed out, and this is a tough time for everyone. Unfortunately, some people associate with Leelanau County through their either spouses or relatives have made some very misleading posts on Facebook and their social media. I just want to address those. And I met with the sheriff yesterday. He's on the same page that I am. It does not help when these false accusations go out there. So I just want to, on the record, clarify them. The county commissioners and I have never attempted to take any benefits away from any employees. We have done everything we can to make sure that every employee, no matter where they work, their safety is our first priority, and there's been no attempt ever to take any benefits away from any group. Also, the fact is, and I know because we don't have a labor contract with a deputy, some of this coming forward. There's been some false posting that we have refused to give the deputies a raise. The fact is, we offered every group the exact same compensation raise. 5 of the groups took it, 1 did not so far, but we did offer them the same 2.5 as everybody else. One false rumor is that I received an $8,000 bonus check recently. I wish that was the case. I keep waiting for Jen to send me that check, but I have not received that, nor have I asked that, nor do the commissioners even offer that. So I know these are difficult times and people are stressed out, but I do want to go on the record and clear that I think every commissioner, every elected official has a great deal of respect for our first responders and our deputies, and are making every effort to work with them. These are challenging times. I know the issue of hazard pay has come up. The week we declared our emergency, the union rep has contacted me, the union reps, several of them, asking for extra compensation. And I keep telling them, we'll do it 1 week at a time. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens at the federal and state level. The sheriff and I are on the exact same page. Let's see what happens first before we allocate county funds. If there truly is a need or desire for hazard pay, we'll of course review that. But at this time, I think it's premature, not knowing what's going to happen at the federal state level, to talk about hazard pay. And like I said, several counties, even yesterday, Otsego County just passed a policy that gave their employees up to 80 hours if they're critical. Well, really 80 hours, if you break it down as 10 days, that's basically what our board did on March 17th. And so we were actually a month ahead of some of these counties. So once again, we are doing everything we can to treat all of our employees, whether they're in this building or next door, as fairly as we can. Not a single person has been forced to use a vacation or personal day. Everyone who has a legitimate reason, we have given them some of those days, either from the federal level or internally, locally. So I'm very pleased with that. And hopefully this will pass soon, but it's been stressful for everyone. I'm sure you as commissioners are getting calls and getting information and rumors, so anything we can do to work together would be very helpful. And like I said, the sheriff and I have been on the same page with this. Matt and I are on the same page. And I know some of the concerns that are raised here, I found out have been raised at every county in the state of Michigan. And so it's challenging for everyone. So we're trying to do the best we can. We're trying to go forward. We are trying to be in compliance with all federal and state mandates. We are trying to keep the employees in this building as safe as possible, and just going forward. But if you could put May 5th on your agenda. We have been working internally. I have been working with department heads, trying to come up with plans post-May if there's a need to. I don't want to panic at this point, but will there be a need to talk about finances and personnel? Yes, but I don't want to do it until May, when there's more information on what's going to happen locally, statewide, and nationwide. So I think I'll stop at this point here and see if there's any questions.
Let me.
Oh yeah, Commissioner Sudas Little. She has to unmute you, just a minute.
I unmuted myself. Mine is more a comment in the hope of forelaying a rumor. You had mentioned, Chet, in Empire that there was a contractor who potentially was having some difficulty adhering to the rules. But I think that probably is the same contractor that I had received information from via a Leelanau Peninsula Economic Foundation board member who happens to live in that area. And they have been in compliance with the governor's order from the beginning. The problem being they were given approval to do some weatherization work. I think that perhaps that was misinterpreted by others who saw work going on and thought it should not be. But I'm happy to say that one of our Leelanau building inspectors did visit the site recently and made recommendations on work for weatherization to proceed to Joe Hubble and Joe Hubble. So just wanted to put that one on the record so we don't get another rumor going.
Commissioner Hansorgi.
we need to keep track of any expenditures that we are making that are related to COVID-19 so that we have good documentation for reimbursement. So I just want to make sure that that's happening.
Yeah, and fortunately for us at this point, we've not had much. Matt gave you an update in terms of the equipment. We got some funds for that. Really, in terms of our overtime costs, they have been virtually none because obviously this building has not been open to the public and law enforcement. There's actually very few calls coming in. So fortunately, our cost at this point has been very minimal.
But if
yes, we are prepared.
If we have granted, time off, because of, quarantine, or whatever, we want to make sure we're documenting.
I have a spreadsheet. Laurel updates these spreadsheets every pay period. We keep track of our daily healthy thing on a daily basis. Every pay period, Michelle and I meet, go over those, and then Laurel puts on a spreadsheet. So we are very well prepared for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, then we'll move on to the potential renewal of the 911 surcharge.
Okay, I thought is Matt there in the room? Okay, Jen is leaving and Matt is entering.
Yep.
Commissioner Wessel.
Yes, I recommended the Board of Commissioners to approve staying status quo for the annual collection and remittance report and have the 911 director and county clerk complete the required form.
Commissioner Rushton.
I'll support. Did you get that?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Were there any statements or questions about it? I mean, I myself thought that this might be something that we could do for the people of Leelanau County where we would actually give them a little relief. I mean, I know it's not much, but I mean, their expenses, without income are going to be going, and we could give them relief here by not adding this charge this year. So I'm not in favor of us continuing it, at least just for the 1 year. Commissioner Rushton.
And how would that affect our obligation that we're using the money for? Can we feasibly reduce this year and not have an impact? And I don't know who can answer that. Is Jen available?
She's here. We can have her talk.
Okay, so the telephone surcharge that comes in, it helps offset your 911 dispatch and then also into your radio capital improvements project, so the radio project that we did. So we are balancing and have approved budgets to use the number that we basically projected for 2020 when we processed our budget last August. So if you make that adjustment, you'll need to find it from somewhere else, your funding source.
Okay. When we were talking about the other budgets, you said there was $5 million in the general fund that was available. And I was thinking that we wanted you to try to use that, to help the county out instead of adding more taxes or adding this tax.
If you want me to, I'm more than happy to run reports. I'll be here next week for the meeting, and I can tell you what that money is that we take in to budget that, and if you choose where to take it from another fund or to use fund balance from the general fund, that would be your option.
Jen, is it about $100,000?
I didn't have that in front of me, but I would guess that that would be a close figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Matt's thinking the proposed numbers would be about 114,000.
Okay. Commissioner Lautner.
Thank you. That was my first question, is how much revenue are we talking? So it's a significant amount. Will, I appreciate where you're coming from on that. But with the uncertain times of tax collections coming up, et cetera, if we have a delay in those or postponement of those, I would be concerned about our finances. So I'm going to support this motion. Also, because of the next item on the agenda, I'm kind of excited about, so that could take a hefty chunk of our revenue. So thank you.
All right. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Wait.
Oh, sorry.
Tell them raise your hand.
Okay, just raise your hand if you're in favor of it. All those in favor? Okay, and all those opposed? The motion passes 6-1. Thank you. So then we'll move then to the LEC tower.
Okay, Chet and I have been working together with our tower consultant, Max Pachuta. We're looking to put together a request for proposals in order to have tower contractors come and bid on a tower that we have spec'd out. What we would like to see would be a tower that could sustain 5 co-locators on our property that would be able to be an added revenue source for the county for many years to come. One thing that we do want to do is garner support for a co-locator at the onset. Verizon has expressed interest, and we're also looking out to AT&T to see if they could have any interest to get on the tower as well.
So, I mean, just to clarify, this is really not required a vote. We just want your endorsement to make sure you're all in agreement. This simply is a request to go out for proposals to get firm bids on the cost of the construction of a tower. If the bids come back, you can review them, then make a decision how to go forward. But obviously, this is a big issue, so we just want your endorsement more than anything else at this point, just to go forward with the request for proposal.
So could we have a motion, Commissioner Lautner?
Yes, I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the Administrator and Emergency Management Director to develop a proposal in order to construct a communications tower on the government center property.
Commissioner Rushton? Did you second it? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes,
Commissioner Rushton?
yes.
Okay, I thought so. All right. Commissioner Lautner, would you like to speak on this?
Yes, please. While I'm not excited about putting another tower on our campus, obviously, I've spoken to that in the past. If we are going to, I believe it should be done. If we are going to place a tower on our campus, I do want to see it set by the county. I want to see it controlled by the county. Best district countywide. I appreciate the work that you've been doing, the footwork, trying to I also want to recognize the fact that it's hard to site towers in our county. That's been a problem for 20, 25 years. So if we can help our providers in that manner, I'm going to support this motion to move forward.
Commissioner Ansari.
2 points. The first is, Matt, when you're having these discussions about this tower, I also want to make sure that we realize the co-location nature of our existing tower. What I'm trying to say here is if there's something that we need to do that would be better, for our county functions on the new tower, I'd like to make sure that we do that if that's appropriate, so we can balance between the two towers. So yes. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And the other issue is, are we going to talk to Sutton's Bay about this tower being located at the county? I know we can force it through, but are we going to get their input? I want to make sure we don't lose that.
Yeah, we have plans to work with not only Suttons Bay Township, but the County Planning Commission as well with this tower. As far as the towers working together with the existing tower, we would look to moving some of the equipment onto the new tower, just based on probability of trees becoming in, getting in the way of the existing tower. So a microwave path from our new site would be a lot less congested, if you will, at the new tower site. So we are looking at that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rushton.
Yes, I second this motion because I think it's important that we move forward with future plans for the county. And my hopes is that once we have our return on investment occurs, I am hoping that these funds will help offset future costs of our 911 system. I think by putting this on the county property as the owner, being able to collect the revenue from this, I think it helps all of our citizens in a couple different ways. It provides extended Wi-Fi service, and it also offsets some of the costs for operations on our campus. So that's my reasons for supporting this today.
Any other comments? Okay, again, we'll just raise your hand. All those in favor, say aye. All those
Aye.
opposed? Okay. So the motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. So then that brings us to the Solid Waste Council, acceptance of recycling partnership grant agreement. Trudy did drop off the changes, and she's here just to talk about it.
Good morning. There is a new change. You should have had a different page 7 in your packet than what was sent out. I apologize for that. You got the one that was in your February packet by mistake. So the page 7 is actually the request, the EDS request for you to accept this award. We applied for this grant in February after the board approved submittal of the grant. And then we were notified on March 24th that we received the grant. So I've done the conference call in with the representatives, and they're ready to go on it. There might be a little slowdown, of course, because of the current situation, but they're getting grant agreements approved across the state, and they're gearing up for this new grant.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
I move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to accept the recycling grant and execute the recycling partnership grant agreement.
Okay, supported by Commissioner Weston. Any other comments? Commissioner Rushton.
Questions for Trudy in regards to the grant. I noticed that the grant requires someone to go to a training in May. And I assume that training is paid for the grant. However, in reading through the contract, it specifically states that there is no funding available for travel. So my question to you is, this is just one of the items that I have seen where maybe the grant doesn't pay for added costs of implementing the program. And I am wondering if you have prepared a budget, or if you anticipate allocating additional funds for the purposes of implementing the grant.
Well, there's actually been a change in that during the conference call that I had last week. They've canceled that conference, that required conference where you would go for training. And instead, it's going to be an online training. It will be the same time as when they were going to hold that conference on May 5th. And then they opened it up so that we could have additional people in on the conference training, which will be 2 hours. So I will be in on that. And we also have 3 or 4 solid waste council members so far who also said they wanted to be in on that online training. And of course, anyone from the county board could also participate if they'd like to. So there'd be no travel. They've changed the training. We don't have to worry about those costs.
What about the are there any other additional costs that will come to the county in regards to this grant?
It's possible we might have a contract to have someone do the checking at the sites, which is a requirement, but that would come out of the grant. That would not be our cost. The grant will pay for that.
Well, I think you answered that both ways. You said there's possibly money that would come out of the county, but the grant would cover that. What do you mean by that?
We would contract with someone to do the checking of the site. So as part of this grant, it's required that we have someone stop at each one of the sites on a periodic time frame and talk with people, make sure they're recycling properly, give them tips and so forth. But that is a grant cost. That is not a county cost. I apologize if I had that wrong. That can come out of the grant.
Is that person someone that is employed through the county, or is that going to be contracted to a different agency?
We haven't determined that yet. We'll have to do that once we get further into this grant agreement and go through the training.
So if we allocate someone from the county, then that would offset their wages?
If we're allowed to do that under the grant, I'd have to check and see if that's allowed.
Well, going back to my original question, what I'm concerned with this grant or any grants going forward is the actual cost to the county to implement these grants. And I don't think you're prepared to answer that for us today. So I will not support this grant today. Hopefully you'll be able to provide us more information next week so that we actually know the exact cost to the county to implement the grant.
Trudy, I was just wondering if there's someone going to go out to the sites now, are they going to be sort of policing it? Are they going to be telling businesses they can't recycle, or are they going to be telling people from Traverse City that they can't? You know, is that the kind of thing, or is it just to help them with what they're recycling and doing it in the proper way?
Under this grant, it's to help them with recycling, you know, make sure they're doing it properly, not putting materials in there that they shouldn't be putting into the recycling bins. And yes, we can still have them tell people this is for households only, not businesses. And in this, we have funds under the budget directed for that person to take care of those tasks under the grant.
So they actually, they'll be doing both, whoever does that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? Okay, all those in favor, just raise your hand. So that'll be 6, and all those opposed? It's 1, 6 to 1. Thank you.
Thank you.
So then, all right, so then that brings us to potential approval of notice of intent to amend the solid waste plan.
Yes, this is a required document from EGLE, the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. And it is a document that has to be approved by the county board in order for us to send it to the state and let them know that we're going to start the amendment process of our solid waste management plan. So there's 2 parts of it. The first is to approve the notice of intent if you'd like us to start amending that plan. And then the second part is to pass a motion stating the Solid Waste Council would be the Solid Waste Management Planning Committee. And that is also required by law. That is a 14-member committee that would do the amendment to the plan. We have always had our Solid Waste Council set up for the 14 members by law, which meets the requirements of the Solid Waste Management Planning Committee. So we don't have to set up a new committee.
Commissioner Rettenbach.
I move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to execute the notice of intent and to send to the state.
Commissioner Sudas Little, support? Yes. Anyone want to speak to this? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, The motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So then that brings us to the planning commission vacancy.
No, there's a second motion.
There's a second motion? Oh,
It's for
I'm
the
sorry.
Solid Waste Management Planning Committee.
Yes. So could we have that, Commissioner Redpath? I'm sorry, you'll have to start over. You're muted. Just a second, she'll undo it. Is she ready? Okay, go ahead.
I move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 14-member Solid Waste Council as the Solid Waste Management Planning Committee for purposes of amending the plan.
Commissioner Sudis-Little seconds it. And Commissioner Wessel as well. Any questions, Commissioner Ansorgi? Go ahead.
One of the questions I had is, are we just amending the plan to allow curbside recycling, or is there other things that also are going to be amended?
There's going to be some other things considered for amendment, such as cleaning up names and organizations in the plan that are no longer relevant. And we've also been asked in the past by other counties to open up our import-export authorization. If we did that, that would allow haulers in our area to take waste to other locations, as well as other haulers to bring it into Leelanau County. So that is something that could be considered as well.
Have we had any discussions about that?
The Solid Waste Council has had discussions over the years on that. One of the things that came up from the two main solid waste industry representatives is that travel really kind of limits how far you will go, because you're not going to get people coming up here from southern Michigan when they can pass 5 or 6 landfills on their way. So we're kind of limited where we're at, and especially being a peninsula, as to how far that import-export might go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. My question is, does Grand Traverse County have a landfill of their own?
No, they do not have landfill.
And where do they presently take their?
Some of it goes to Glenn's landfill on 72. Some of it might go to the American Waste landfill. Every landfill by law is required to put a report into the state each year on what they take in and where it comes from. And those are all public documents that are up on the website for the state.
Okay.
So, for instance, Glenn's landfill would show how many tons of material came in each year and what counties it came from.
Okay. Yeah, I think that that's going to be an important for us to consider, because we're, as you said, we're a peninsula county and we're a very small county. So I'm careful of the amount of stuff we want to bring into Glenn's landfill. I know we already do accept some, but we certainly would not want to become the landfill for, say, something the size of Grand Traverse County, and certainly none from downstate if possible.
Well, go ahead, Trudy.
Was there something on the end there? I think I might have missed what the last part was that Commissioner Lautner said.
No, just after, certainly none from downstate if possible. And then thank you.
Yes, the county, through our solid waste management plan, we have the authority to determine what that import-export will look like. And it will have to be approved by at least 2/3 of our local municipalities and the county board before we send it to the state for approval.
Well, and I'm glad to hear you're considering that, because I do believe that that the landfill now has a monopoly and actually is charging pretty exorbitant prices for dumping the waste. So I think it might work to Leelanau County's benefit to open it up to other places, but as Commissioner Lautner said, I mean, I would be concerned about things coming from southern Michigan, but I think you've kind of addressed that with the travel. But I do know that the landfill is very, very costly, much more so than many others I've heard of from people who are working in Leelanau County, who work in different counties. Any other statements? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, all those opposed, motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
So then now that'll bring us to the, would it be the planning commission vacancy? Commissioner Wessel, are you raising your hand there?
I wanted to make a comment on this before but we could make a motion first if you wanted to. My comment is that we usually have references from our county, and usually or often a reference from a county commission. I'm wondering if we would be open to forwarding this to next week and ask for the candidate to interview for that with us at next week's meeting.
Is that a motion?
I will make that as a motion, yes.
Okay, Commissioner Sudas Little supports it as well. So are there any other comments about it? Commissioner Rushton.
Did Trudy or anybody from,
Planning Commission?
yeah, the Planning Commission interview this candidate?
No.
Did the Planning Commission make a recommendation?
He's the only one.
No, he's the only one who has been applied, and so that was the recommendation because we have no other applications.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. I certainly have no problem taking action on this next week. If in the meantime, if there's something you want to ask of Mr. Black, like local references, I think that's fine. I'm sure he would be happy to come up with them. This is just a little bit outside of the bounds of how we have been appointing our members of our boards and commissions in the last year or so. So what we are asking ourselves to do now is to go back to the process that me and my committee had developed some years ago, where we did interview candidates for our boards and positions. But since then, this board determined that that didn't work, and that we would all as a committee meet and do those boards and commissions. This is a single one. This is what we're doing today. So I'm just a little concerned about us choosing how we're going to do our boards and commission appointments. I've met Mr. Black a couple of different times. I think his resume is sound. I think he could easily be his references could easily be checked on. He was in public service in the past, and must have an extensive amount of people that could speak to him in the real estate business. He fits the field we're looking for, and we've been looking for this person, a person for this field for a long time. So I have no problem waiting Tuesday night, but I'm a little concerned also then that we're going to request or insist on only local references. That's fine. Yeah, but I think that we're going to have to put that into our policies if that's what we're going to do. That we're only going to accept local only, then Leelanau County, etc. So I have no problem waiting, but I would just as soon move forward today. That interview, so I know he did, at last month's board meeting. Came came and spoke to our board meeting. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Wessel?
Oh, wait, he clicked, tell him to start over.
Yeah, you're gonna, we
I
can't
don't-
hear you, Mr. Okay.
Okay,
go
I'll
ahead.
try, I'll start over. I don't have anything against Mr. Black. It seems to me this is a little different than we've usually done business, because usually we have a recommendation from the committee or the commission for an appointment. Usually we have more than one, have somebody that has pending meeting. What are Mr. Black's views about planning commission? And that's what those are the kinds of things that I would like to ask him. And I do believe that this is a little different than normal, as Melinda said. But part of what's different than normal is we don't have much information on him. He has not been active, at least as I understand, active in our county. And I don't know if he's ever attended a planning commission meeting. Thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Sotis-Lowell.
Yes, thank you. I supported this for the very same reason. I don't know Mr. Black. I'm sure he's an excellent candidate. Commissioner Lautner was correct. His experience in terms certainly shows a knowledge of government, at least through the road commission and the enforcement entities. And I think it would be very helpful to just be able to talk with him and find out a little bit more. He's only been in the county a short time. So this is a little bit of a different departure, but as Commissioner Lautner said, is something that has been done in the past and we may want to use in the future when we find ourselves in this situation where we really don't have as much information as we normally would have. And it's a lovely way to meet the candidate and in a comfortable way for all of us to get to know who that person is for a very important position.
Commissioner Rushton.
What I've heard really raises alarm bells for me. What I heard you say, or it said, we don't know what his views are. It's not our job to manipulate these boards. He is a citizen of our community who has the credentials to fill the position. He has filled out the paperwork. He has come before this board. And because we don't know this person's views on his issues, we are rejecting his application today. I find that very alarming. I can tell you, the candidate who was opposition in my campaign a couple years ago was not a community member for very long, and she had widespread support from a lot of you who sit before this board today. And when you start changing the rules about who we are going to appoint to these boards, I don't care what his views are. He is a citizen of this community. He has put his foot forward to serve like every other person on our board. And if we don't like that person in 20 months, or if he's unfit for the position, he can be removed. I will be supporting this today. And I would hope that my fellow board members really think about what they have said here today.
Commissioner Wessel.
Yes, let me be clear. I didn't ask what his views were. What I said is I don't know that we know his views on what the role. Know that he's been to the planning commission. I think those are appropriate questions to ask. I welcome his application, but I think whenever we make an appointment, we need to know who we're appointing. And if we interview him next week, then we can all feel good about appointing somebody that knows the role they're accepting, and we have met them and we have talked with them. And I think that's only good practice.
Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. Again, I have to agree with everything that Commissioner Rushton just said, because even the more we speak, the more alarmed I'm getting by this, because we have never called someone before us and asked them questions or asked them if they know how to sit on this board or what this board is all about. We haven't done that before, and this is picking and choosing. In the past, all it's taken is for someone to say, I know this person, I recommend this person, or I trust this person, or I know them from something else. So I really don't know why there's a question of us not making this recommendation today. We would all have the opportunity this week to contact Mr. Black, to talk to him. Any of us have that opportunity to do so before we ratify this vote next Tuesday night. As I said, this seat has been open for a while, and the last time the Planning Commission met, which was, I believe, the first part of March, we actually had a quorum problem. So this can help alleviate that problem. I know Mr. Black bought his home up here some time ago and has been remodeling it. So I know he spent a lot of time up here. I know been getting out and getting to know the area, getting to know the county, and getting to know the people in it. I do know that. The exact dates, I don't know. But I believe by his resume, he just moved up here last September. But as Deb said, we've appointed others to boards in the past, I believe, that have had less time. So I'm not going to support the motion to move this to Tuesday. I would prefer a motion to recommend today, give everybody an opportunity to talk to any of his references in this next week.
I was just wondering, because this is a vote to bring him to next week and interview him, would we put him in the VA room, or how would we do that for interviewing?
You can dial in.
He could do it from home.
We just do it as a phone call?
No, if he has ability, he could zoom in also.
Okay.
It's depending on his technology.
All right. Commissioner Sudas Little.
I'm concerned that a recommendation to just simply, get to know someone was taken the way it was and presented as though we are trying to restrict people from service. I mean, that would be the last thing I would want to do. And the fact that we've been looking for someone for this position, this gentleman sounds like he has all the credentials. This is something that Commissioner Lautner said was done before by her committee. I don't think anyone wanted to create the milestorm that we've got going here, or to have the kind of assumptions that are being made that are absolutely off base. And I, for one, resent that. This is not what was intended. I think Commissioner Lautner's thought to go ahead and approve him and then do a final is fine. We could call him individually, but it would be nice to be able to meet him as a group too. There was nothing intended in Commissioner Wessel's motion that we would be discriminating against anyone or trying to, quote, pick and choose. So I just wanted to say for the record, I'm very disappointed one would have taken those comments that way.
Commissioner Lautner.
Yes, thank you. My point is, we have to have a process we are going to use. So if we are all okay with bringing all of the candidates in the future in front of us for interviewing, I am okay with that. But Patricia, it was you yourself that insisted that my committee get abolished. Because this is how we used to do business. That's the way I preferred. But you abolished my committee. So now suddenly you want to go back to that process. My point is, be uniform about it. Don't be picking and choosing as it suits you. If you want to go back to that process and even not do it by committee. So in other words, this whole board will interview any candidates that come before boards and commissions. That's just fine. But maybe it was not Ty's intent to do this, to create a firestorm or whatever. But you cannot pick and choose. You have to be uniform in how we treat our candidates. And this candidate, for some reason, is not being treated the same as past candidates. That is my concern.
Commissioner Rushton.
I would like to clarify my rant, if you may. My rant was directed towards the comment, we don't know his views. That's where my rant came from.
Commissioner Wessel.
Yes. Floor?
Go ahead, Commissioner Wessel.
Yeah. I appreciate Melinda's comment. I didn't intend to create a firestorm. I don't have any problem with this applicant. I saw this as a different situation because we don't have, at least I don't believe we know who we're appointing. He has not had a history of involvement. I think I'd prefer that we appoint people that have been very active, that have been working in groups, that have been coming to meetings, that we know works in the community. When we do, and has a recommendation from the committee or commission. None of those things happen. So I saw this as a little bit different. I don't feel strongly about this. It was my view that we ought to know who we're appointing and make sure that he knew that the planning commission was an important role to play, and we wanted his views on what his role on the planning commission is. I think that's legitimate. I don't think that's disrespectful. I don't think it takes away from our process. I think it's just good business practice, but I call the question.
So, I mean, I guess we usually get a recommendation from the planning commission. That would be, I mean, the one thing that's really missing from this that we usually are asked for, you know, but usually if someone just that is known by one or two of the commissioners, usually that's sufficient enough if they say that. I mean, we do seem to have that as well, so. Anyway, are there, without any other comments, I'd say all those in favor, please raise your hand.
Who seconded?
There was no second
Okay,
question.
all those opposed, please raise your hand. So all right, motion passes 4-3.
Who you and no?
What's that?
Who you and no?
Yes. So Commissioner Rushton.
Was that the motion in regards to calling the question? Because it was my understanding that was the last request.
No, there was no second to calling the question. So we didn't, this was just the regular vote through the for him or against him. Against moving it forward to next month's meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
Next week's meeting. So did that answer your question?
Yes, and one other question I do have. Who prepared the executive document summary? Was it Chad or did this come from the Planning Commission? Who prepared the paperwork for us today?
Laurel.
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 At whose request?
Well, we have a vacancy and we had it on the agenda last month, but there was no applicants.
And now we have.
So it was moved forward, so that's why it's on the agenda.
Okay.
And he was the one that applied. I don't believe the plan commission has met since last month.
Okay, so
Yeah,
they've had no input on this issue.
No.
Okay.
Commissioner Sudas,
I just wanted to thank Commissioner Rushton for your clarification and also to say, Commissioner Lautner, you are correct. I did request and made the motion that we go to the body of the whole so that more than 3 people were making these decisions, and would certainly stand by that. I think adding an interview process is not reverting back to the old ways. It's maybe adapting something that was good that you started from the past. So thanks everybody for your comments.
all right, so then we would move on to the administration and labor negotiation.
Final comment, Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Commissioner Wessel.
If we're going, what I think it's important how we approach it with Mr. Black, and I don't think we let him assume that we have any concerns about him, that we just want to get to meet him. We thank him for his application, and we're going to vote on his appointment next week.
Yeah, we'll call him and we'll invite him to participate either by phone or by Zoom.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lautner.
A lot of things have been said today, and a lot of statements have been made about how we appoint people to our boards and commissions. So I guess I need to throw this out there. So now is that going to be a criteria that somebody actually must be involved publicly in the community, serve? There's a lot of thrown out there that apparently sway this board on making decisions on appointments. As I said before, I've never had a problem interviewing candidates in the past when somebody did not know them. You're treating this candidate differently for some reason. By a vote of 4, you have that ability to do that, to pick and choose. And I don't know how he would not feel selected to be handled differently. And in the past, Patricia, it was not 3 people who made those decisions. 3 people made a recommendation to the full board. The full board made a recommendation to the full board for ratification. Thank you.
Okay, so then we would move on then to the administration and labor negotiation update.
Yes, you know, we have 6 labor contracts total here in the county. We have agreements with 5 of them. 1 we do not. I've been in dialogue with the 5th union, with their regional representative. He did send me a counter proposal last week. I will set up a conference call with our negotiating team, which is Commissioner Lautner and Commissioner Ainsworthy, and I believe Mr. Buddick is the alternate, and get your thoughts to see, to respond to their latest proposal. And I'd like to just at this point, just forward to next week's meeting.
Do we have a motion for that? Commissioner Lautner?
Yes.
Okay, and those, is there someone to support that? Please raise your hand. Commissioner Wessel. All right, all those in favor of moving this forward, please raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? The motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So then, now we have a review of financials. Commissioner Lautner?
Yeah, thank you. Jen, we had two more heat pumps. I believe it was a total of 16,000. I'm sorry, I don't remember what page, but I think it was B&W was the vendor. is,
I can
Is it-
respond, yes, we had 2 more. We approved 10 of them. I believe this is number 6 and 7 of those 10
Okay,
heat
that-
pumps.
okay, that was the question, what number we are at. But do we think
Yeah.
this is, are there more coming then?
Well, we don't know, we're caught up at this point, but as you know, with those heat pumps, they have a tendency to fail, so at this point, we are caught up with them.
Okay,
I believe we budgeted for 10.
Yeah, we budgeted for 10, I was just trying to be proactive, so every time one broke, we didn't have to go through the board. So you did approve up to 10 of them, and so we're getting up to that number. If it's more than 7, I'll let you know, but I'm pretty sure it's number 6 and 7.
okay.
Commissioner Rushton, did you have your hand up? Yes.
To verify that the other charges for some of these boilers are they annual servicing fees? Is this what takes place every year?
Yes, we do it every spring and every fall.
Okay.
And it looks
I
like-
was- oh. I was just gonna say that with the heating coming on the baseboard, the heat pumps won't be used as much for
Correct,
heating.
yes.
So we're really gonna use the heat pumps more for air conditioning and using the boilers and the baseboard for heating. So they won't have to run as much anymore. That was part of the idea, that will actually cut the cost down on the heat pumps as well. Jen, did you have something? Yes.
Yep, I just wanted to state on the invoice, it does say that the notes that it's number 5 and 6. So we still would have 4 more then.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
there may be one upstairs that may be changed after April 30th, so we're holding off on that one. So there may be one more.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Lautner, go ahead.
Jen, what is the sign for the parking lot from Dornbos?
We have a new sign. I know you guys haven't visited. At the corner, it'd be it's the back side. If you're parking on the back side of the courthouse, you can come around the parking lot and people weren't stopping if they were coming and using the 2-way in front by the handicap parking. So they put a stop sign there that says that the flow of traffic doesn't stop from the other side. So it's on the curb because you could come around the corner and then people coming in front of the handicap spots. And it sounds like there's been a few misses there.
Gotcha, okay.
I can verify there are a few misses. I was almost hit a couple weeks ago there. So it was for a stop sign, and it has helped.
Maybe that was intentional.
Yes, that could have been, yes.
Okay, so any other questions? No? Then we'll move on to any special reports by the staff? No? Any public comment?
No one has requested it.
Okay. So then we'll move on to any commissioner comments. Commissioner Rushton.
Yes, I would just like to give you a brief update on Beta. As you all are probably pretty much aware, Beta has been incrementally reducing its services across both counties. However, door-to-door is still available for any citizen for critical need as far as food, healthcare needs, and that thing. So as we start to see that reduction in service, overall service, I just want to make everyone aware that there is opportunity for bus service for critical needs.
Commissioner Sudis Little.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to share that our Leelanau Internet Futures team, our LIFT committee, it's meeting tomorrow. virtually. And there are some exciting things that are happening with some of our providers. And we're looking at some very interesting options. So hopefully next time we meet, I will have a very nice report to share on some progress. I mean, there's no question right now, I think everybody understands internet is not a luxury. It certainly has been a utility that many people have had to do without. So we're looking at what is going on throughout the county from students up and down the scale and some of the things that could be put in place right away and what kind of plans to finish up the whole project. So as I said, I'll look forward to giving you an update next time we meet virtually.
Commissioner Wessel.
Thanks to all of this and the sheriff's office. And just a big thanks to everybody at the county building and all of the leaders there that have been managing this crisis. I'm proud to say that I am a part of the Leelanau County Commission because you're doing such a nice job. Thank you.
Commissioner Ansargi.
Thank you. 2 points. One, we did get a copy of the 2019 Sheriff's Office annual report, and there's a lot of good news in there. Again, the jail passed its audit with no findings at all, which is very unusual when I checked up on other counties. So that's a real good thing, and that crimes are down and continuing to go down every year. So there's some good information in there, and I'd like to recognize the Sheriff's Department, both the administration and the employees, that from that report that there is good news in there. And if you look at it, it's we're very, very fortunate to be in Leelanau County. The second point I'd like to make is I've listened to this discussion on the boards and the commission's assignments with a little bit of humor when I think back to when Gene Watkowski resigned, and the members of this board did not take any action at that point in time. So I got a little bit of humor in there because I remember that. Thank you.
So my comment is concerning the internet and what Commissioner Sudis Little had said, in that I did read where the USDA is now is actually having grants for internet in counties. So I don't know who would look into that, maybe Ron would or somebody, but we really need to, that they are coming out with grants from the USDA for internet, broadband internet in rural areas. Commissioner Lochner.
Yes, thank you. But Tony, we don't generally pick commissioners. We elected to allow your district to elect your commissioners. Districts don't appoint boards and commissions. The board appoints boards and commissions. So not a big comparison.
Commissioner Sudis Little.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Commissioner Bunnick, because the LIFT committee has looked into it. In fact, we've interviewed with the USDA official who is in charge of that particular. It's an interesting one. Unfortunately, as a county, we are not eligible. We do not meet some of the requirements, but the LIFT committee was meeting with individual planning commissions before our epidemic started. We've had to halt that, but part of what we were talking with them about is, were there sections of their township that might meet the requirements, since it looks like we can, from Tony Tyndall, who's in charge of this, it looks like we would be able to put together something, at least in support of the townships. So hopefully some of them will be able to take advantage of. There was interest on a couple that we were able to get to before we had to halt the meetings. So thank you, though, for bringing that up. I appreciate that very much.
Well, thank you. So seeing no other comments, then that would bring us to approval of financials. Commissioner Lautner?
I would recommend approval of claims and accounts, $200,700.86.
Okay, so that was, and Commissioner Wessel, you seconds that? So that's $250,760.86. All those in favor? Please raise your hand. All those opposed? The motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Then that brings us to post audit. Commissioner Lautner?
I would recommend approval of post audit, $4,450,133.30.
Okay, so that'd be $4,450,333 or $333.35, seconded by Commissioner Wessel. All those in favor? Please raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed? The motion passes 7-0. Thank you. So with that, we are adjourned. Oh, Commissioner Ansori, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Melinda, you break up a little bit during when you talk. Oh, why? Check that before Tuesday's meeting.
Yes, well, I think most of you do. That's why I repeated the numbers. And so it is a little difficult. Commissioner Rettenbach.
We are proceeding to have another meeting today.
Yes.
The necessary
Yeah, how much time do you need?
necessary to end with another number
15 minutes.
on the same number that we today.
Just stay on, if you will, just stay on, just stay on the.
It's gonna be a different number.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's a different recording.
Okay.
It will be a different number, so
Do they
everybody
know
has
that?
to sign
I
off.
can send it to them.
And then she's going to send it out to you.
It's actually on the.
If you have the agenda, it's on the very top for the second meeting, but Laura will send it out to you shortly.
Oh, yes,
Or
I
tell
see
you what,
it.
I will just text it to them. I have it.
Thank you.
So you're adjourned?
Yes, so we have to, yes, we are adjourned now. Commissioner Rushton. Yes. We can't hear you.